Hello everyone, today we are with Anna Abola. And
Hello.
hello. And so I find interesting for one time to have chat with someone who is not directly a musician but that is also a Latvian artist, I suppose. So how would you define yourself? You say on your Instagram profile digital artist. Yeah.
Yes, I would probably call myself an illustrator and a graphic designer. Graphic design is something that I do as a day job, but illustration is something that I do for myself and for more or less freelance. Yeah, but that's kind of where my heart is. So yeah, I would say an illustrator, a graphic designer.
Mhm. So, how would you define the style you are making? Does it correspond to some kind of field or style or some school, or is it?
Um, I wouldn't say that it's kind of hard to define it. When people see my work for the first time, especially when they're not kind of familiar with the art field, they tend to say, "Oh, this reminds me of like an anime or something like that." But for me, when I hear that, I'm like, "Oh, all right." I don't watch anime. It hasn't had like influence on me, so I find it amusing that that's the thing that it reminds people of. But for me, how my own style came about was just exploring illustration altogether. I was working on my diploma project in high school. I needed to create an artwork to graduate, and I just looked up a ton of illustrators that I really liked, and I wrote down the things that I like about them. Either it was their line work or the way that they showed lighting or their compositions or their color schemes, and I kind of picked at those things that seemed most important to me and just experimented. And so it came about like that. I never really tried to copy anything or something like that, but yeah, it's just a mix of all sorts of things that I find beautiful. So yeah.
So yeah, that was my next question. Is what are the artists? Who are the artists who influenced you? Because this is a field where I know almost nothing. Well, in art, in classical art, but maybe there is a new motion now. So if you can speak to us about some artists.
I think the two artists that I usually name when it comes to this question is Takato Yamamoto, which is a Japanese illustrator, who his work is slightly gruesome and it can be like erotic as well. But I really like the way that he works on details, and his line work is like so organic and flowy. And even though the themes of his work might be a bit off-putting to some people, I still found it to be really beautiful. So when I work on my own line work, like the first layer of my illustrations, I usually still get inspired by his work. And the other artist would be Guy Shield, which is an American illustrator. And his way of depicting lighting is really beautiful, and that inspires me as well. That's sort of more or less contemporary, but when it comes to the old masters, it would probably be pre-Raphaelites, 19th century English artists. Yeah, I recently wrote an essay on them as well because I needed to for university, but their work has remained stunning, and I've always been really inspired by that as well. So yeah.
So your first education and studies were about art, or you came back to, because I was wondering why you feel the need to came back to this kind of studies you are doing right now.
I started my first art school when I was 8, and then it's been constant since then. So my all of my education has some sort of an art background, more or less. So yeah, I've done it forever, so I can't really imagine it any other way. So yeah.
Did you keep the drawings that what you were making when you were 8?
I personally have not, but I think that my mother might have some
Okay.
somewhere. I would be interested to see them as well. Actually, it would be
Okay.
nice to compare.
That's very personal. So when so maybe well that's you already answered this question, but in a sense, but when did you feel that you were really wanting to make a job out of this design work, and where did you feel this thrill and drive inside of you?
um, I think it kind of came about in high school, more or less, because that's when I kind of discovered my own style. It was through working on my graduation project, and I also had an amazing teacher who really inspired me and pushed me forward, and kind of always said that, you got this, like you can do this, because sometimes digital artists are still a bit like looked down upon, and people tend to think that, oh, that's not real art, like the computer does everything for you, that's what is this. So that can be a bit scary when you first come to it, and when you realize that this is what you want to do, but what if people don't really see you as an artist? So he really helped me with kind of understanding that I'm on the right path. So
To allow yourself to say, okay,
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
That's relevant. It's sometimes a tough question because but could you, if you have a clue or if you give us some indication, how do you start a drawing? Is it
I mostly start by just I have my idea, which is more or less, it's either like a composition that I see in my head, or it's like a feeling that I want to express, and then from that I try to search for some reference photography on the internet when I can. Or I take my own pictures if I can't find any. So maybe that's some of the reasons why I've had some people tell me that my characters look like me. That's probably because I couldn't find a reference picture and I had to take one of myself. And I find the picture, and then I start to draw, like with rough lines. I lay out the composition, kind of what I want to be there, and then I just build from there. And in the beginning it's all like a mess of colored lines, but then it just becomes more clear as I work. And yeah, that's kind of how it happens.
But yes, this is striking how personal the theme you are choosing are, and really, it's in my opinion, it shows how you are involved in what you do. Well, recently, I noticed something that is very important, and that is also a problem that is in common with musician, is that you were fighting some plagiary, and it seems to be a constant issue for digital artists on the net and on Instagram, especially. And I saw that you set rules for
Yes.
repost. So, can you explain to us, this context and how you often or how hard you face this kind of problem?
Yes, like copyright infringement is definitely something that's ongoing and has been ongoing for as long as I've been on the internet. And I remember when I first started, when I first made my my Instagram profile, I thought, well, like, I wouldn't have those sorts of problems. Like, people barely even see my work. Why would somebody want to repost it somewhere? And then I just used to put my signature on the bottom of my work. But what I found was that the more people started to follow me, the more cases there were where people would just screenshot my work and they would cut off the bottom of it and they would repost it on their own pages. And like every time I saw that, I was like, oh, this makes me really sad. So I kind of tried to ignore it, but especially when you see people posting your work and when they say that they are the ones who did it, or they try to take the credit for it, or they have a wider audience than you do and they do these sorts of things, it's like really kind of, your pride doesn't really let you sit still when that happens. You're like, no, this is mine. But yeah, so the way that I battled that was I started putting my watermarks in the middle of all of my works, which I can admit that it doesn't really look pleasing, but it stops the stealing for most part. It still sometimes happens, but at least when it happens, the people can find me, who really are interested in my work. They know what my name is, so that's kind of what matters to me the most. So yeah, but I think this is something that will continue to exist unless there is some sort of complete change in the world of digital, like, art rights. So yeah, the one sad thing that happened to me recently was like a big company in America who used my work for their advertising, and they made money off of my work. So that was really shocking to me to see that. Like, they even like digitally manipulated my work to put their products in there for advertising, and that was, I came across it by accident. So if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't even know. So right now I'm kind of looking into it, and I'm thinking of maybe having a word with them and seeing what kind of compensation I can get, because this is really like illegal, like properly illegal, because they're using it to make money. But I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. So we'll see where that goes.
And are you discussing between digital artists about these issues? Are there association or something that try to protect you?
There are illustrator associations. I've heard about them when I was studying abroad in England, because one of the first things that they taught us about were like copyright and all of these things that sadly they don't teach in my university here in Latvia, but there they did. But I found out that it's very local, like there is an illustration association per country, so here in Latvia we don't really have that. So we're kind of on our own.
And so we can also precise that you sell your art with an Etsy shop, or
Yeah, I do. I sell my work, like I sell prints of my illustrations, and that's kind of the only way right now how I'm, not the only way, but one of the ways that I make money off of my work that I've already made, and the other ways by commissions and freelance stuff. And that's really, I think, an online shop, that's kind of where your Instagram following is important, because most people find my my shop through my Instagram, not the other way around. So that's where it's really beneficial to have a number of people who know you. But on my shop as well, I still have to put my watermarks on everything, because that's still on the internet, and so that's a bit funny. I always have to clarify in my product descriptions that there is no watermark on the real thing when you get it. Don't worry. So yeah.